It's been 25 years and we are finally about to get a sequel to the original Space Jam that came out in 1996 starring Michael Jordan and Bugs Bunny. And with the new movie of Space Jam: A New Legacy starring LeBron James and Bugs Bunny, Warner Brothers has huge plans to hopefully reignite the Looney Tunes, introduce them to the public, and start a cinematic universe. But this actually isn't the first time Warner Brothers has attempted to do this, because when the original Space Jam came out in 1996, it was such a huge success that Warner Brothers started up many projects in the background to get different Space Jam sequels going, and then they just never saw the light of day. So what I'm going to do here for you guys is giving you the 7 unmade, canceled Space Jam sequels that Hollywood just did not get off the ground and show to us. I'll be telling you the plot involved with some of these movies, some of the villains involved, and I even have one movie in here that not a lot of people know about, but I was able to reach out to the original creator of it and got a ton of information to share with you guys. So leave me your opinions down below. Which of these 7 movies do you think would have actually have worked in this day and age, or would have been a big nostalgic hit for you in the same way the original Space Jam was? Do you think Space Jam: A New Legacy will start up the franchise once again, or will it be dead silence for another 25 years? As well as hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. It would mean a lot to me and my pyramid of Space Jam pops. So with the first movie on our list, I'm going to cheat a little bit here because it's the only one that wasn't intended to be a direct sequel or at all related to Space Jam, but it is still a Looney Tunes live-action hybrid that I am so sad did not get made. And that is the Untitled Marvin the Martian movie. That's right, Marvin the Martian, one of my favorite Looney Tune characters, who was the referee in the original Space Jam, was supposed to get his own solo movie. The project was announced back in July of 2008 with Warner Brothers and Alkaline Entertainment. It even had a confirmed release date of October 7, 2011. So this thing was supposed to hit theaters, but one day it just mysteriously got removed off the release calendar for Warner Brothers. But thankfully, one employee at Warner Brothers had real faith in this movie, so much so that they leaked out the test footage for this movie, hoping it would have such a positive reaction from the public that Warner Brothers would then be forced to make it again. I'm going to be playing you guys some of that footage here, but before that, I want to go ahead and read the plot of this movie. It was going to go as: the film would have involved Marvin trying to destroy the Earth during Christmas by becoming a competitor of Santa Claus, but being prevented from destroying the Earth when Santa wraps him inside a gift box. Alcon compared the project to other films such as Racing Stripes and My Dog Skip. Yeah, 2 absolutely classics in Hollywood. How did they not make the combination of Racing Stripes and My Dog Skip? Now, as I play for you guys the footage here, that yes, this is an idea of what the movie was supposed to look like. Remember, it's just test footage, so it's not completely polished. It had vibes of being a Christmas movie where they even had Christopher Lee cast as Santa Claus. But the sign that this movie would have been pure meme joy is that the voice of Marvin the Martian was going to be played by Mike Myers. And if you don't know, Mike Myers is the voice of Shrek. Already, I can hear the tears around the world that Marvin the Martian did not get his movie. As far as the test footage goes, it is kind of hard to tell how good this movie would have been. It actually feels like a very average early 2000s kid movie that probably would have had a little too many adult jokes, but I think would have added on to that meme ability. And you could tell by watching this moment in the test footage.
Earth being.
That's it. I'm pulling your batteries.
Those aren't batteries!
Marvin the Martian was gonna get a movie and a kid was gonna squeeze his balls. Why didn't you make this, Hollywood? The only explanation for why the project didn't come true is the only other reason you need for the rest of these projects and why they didn't happen is Looney Tunes Back in Action. Warner Brothers was really banking back on the day for Looney Tunes Back in Action to be the next big hit for the Looney Tunes and reignite them to create a cinematic universe, but it failed for them, thus putting the Looney Tunes away for a very long time. And that sucks, because Looney Tunes Back in Action, I think, is really good, and I actually think is better than the original Space Jam, but does not get enough credit. At least in terms of being clever, the writing, and what they do with the Looney Tunes character, it's really well made, and it sucks that this is the movie that Warner Brothers always points at for why the rest of these films never got made. But speaking of some nostalgic feelings I had towards the original Space Jam, let's talk about the original plot for Space Jam 2 that was gonna star Michael Jordan. It's a common thing in Hollywood that if you have a successful movie that breaks box office records and is one of the top grossing movies of the year, there's most likely plans to try and sequelize it and make more. And that was going to be the plan with the original Space Jam. They had put in ideas forward to make a sequel involving Michael Jordan, and I have no idea if this thing would have turned out good. And one of the weird things about this project is that they created a villain for the movie before they had an actual plot and story lined up. Animator Bob Camp went ahead and drew up what he thought the villain should look like for the new Space Jam movie, and from there they were going to try to create a story around it. And the drawings of what this villain would have looked like are online. He would have been named Berserko. He would have been this chunkier dude who tends to wear nothing but a cape and Speedo. The animator did go ahead and say that he was inspired by Mel Brooks to create him, so he was supposed to resemble him in some form. But along with Berserko, they also had the idea of giving him minions, one that would be named Oh Yes and Oh No. And again, they just created these characters without having an idea of the stories. But the reason the script never got made or a story was found out for how this character Berserko would be going after the Looney Tunes is because the people involved making Space Jam 2, producers, went ahead and lied to the studio that Michael Jordan had already signed on for the movie and agreed to do it, when in real life Michael Jordan did not want to do it anymore. He thought one movie was enough, he was happy with that success, and it wasn't something he wanted to do again because he's a basketball player, not an actor. As soon as Warner Brothers found out that Michael Jordan had not agreed to do the second movie, they stopped development on it and put it on hold, hoping they can convince Michael Jordan, but he never budged and the project was dead. And that's where Warner Brothers was put into a very awkward position with all these other movies they had in development. They had the idea of Space Jam, but they didn't have the star power of Michael Jordan, one of the most popular athletes in the world, to come back and do the movie. So Warner Brothers thought, we're just gonna approach every major athlete from each sport and take the Air Bud route and just do Space Jam with a bunch of different sports. So these next projects, we never got a lot of information from. We just knew who they had in mind to make the movie, and then for some reasons, the project just never got off the ground, I think for obvious reasons, one of them being Race Jam, where they were gonna approach NASCAR driver Jeff Gordon, who I'm not a big NASCAR fan, but I'm assuming this guy was pretty big back in the early 2000s, late 90s. And that movie, as you could imagine, would have just been the Looney Tunes in a NASCAR race, and that actually could have been a lot of fun, okay? Not a NASCAR fan at all, but to see the Looney Tunes get behind the wheel, Fast and Furious some things, and start spouting out family, we could have had 10 Race Jam movies instead of the 10 Fast and Furious movies that we got. Another wild idea would have been Golf Jam, where they would have gotten Tiger Woods to be their lead to team up with the Looney Tunes here. I think that sounds absolutely ridiculous. In an interview in 2016, the original director of Space Jam went ahead and said that he approached Spike Lee to help him write the script for the movie. And I know I literally just said that a Golf Jam movie would have been ridiculous, would have been so dumb, but that kind of is the thing that the Looney Tunes are great at, is turning really dumb ideas and making them awesome, that a Golf Jam movie probably could have been just as big as Space Jam. Think of it this way. If Nintendo's able to make dozens of Mario golf games and those sell out, this movie probably would have sold out. One out-of-the-box idea they had with just putting a sport and the word jam right in front of it was one that did not involve a sport, and that would have been the movie titled Spy Jam. Now this one is another cheater on the list because technically this movie did end up being made and was originally what Looney Tunes Back in Action was named. But the original person that Warner Brothers wanted to have in mind for this movie was Jackie Chan instead of Brendan Fraser. I think Jackie Chan is such a skilled, charismatic actor that it would have been great to see him interact with the Looney Tunes, do a couple of fight scenes with some characters. Bringing me to the last two movies on this list that I think are the best ones and would have worked so well that I think could have surpassed the original Space Jam with Michael Jordan, and that is the movie Skate Jam that was going to star Tony Hawk. This movie got pretty far in development where they were so close to getting it off the ground. It was supposed to be the next movie after Looney Tunes Back in Action. Tony Hawk has gone on his Instagram Live and told the story of how he got involved with the project, how he was so excited to do it because he was a big fan of Looney Tunes, and that his kids love Space Jam, so he definitely wanted to be part of it.
Warner Brothers called my agent. I actually had a few agents at the time, which is even stranger, but and Warner Brothers called him and said, we would like to pitch Tony on a movie called Skate Jam that he would star in with all the Warner Brothers characters, Bugs Bunny, Porky Pig, Tweety, Marvin the Martian, my favorite, by the way. And it was more, everyone looked at me like, am I into it? Yes, of course I'm into it. This is amazing. But at the end of the meeting, they said, well, we are going to do, we have just finished a movie called Back in Action, and this is to reintroduce all the Warner Brothers characters. Came home and there were no more calls returned about Skate Jam.
I don't know why, but when I think about Skate Jam, it just reminds me of the sequel to a Goofy movie, where that went from a father-son movie to a sequel being about a boy who goes to college and does skateboarding and X Games. Like, what? But the final movie on this list that is probably my favorite because I was able to get so much information that I could actually visualize this movie and see what it would have turned out is a film by the name of Varsity Bugs. Now, this is a project I had heard about many years ago because I am a listener of Kevin Smith and his many podcasts. And on one of those podcasts, he had the writer of Minions and Secret Life of Pets, Brian Lynch. And because nothing is a coincidence, later in life, Brian Lynch would follow me on Twitter and let me know he's a fan of the channel and enjoyed the Chucky content. So instead of using my Hollywood connection to get into the industry, make a movie, and become a rich movie star, I asked him if he could tell me about the canceled Space Jam sequel, because I was dying to know. So buckle in, because the man was very generous with information, and I think you'll be able to visualize this movie yourself. So the plot for Varsity Bugs, as described by Brian Lynch, goes as the idea for that was that Warner Brothers gets taken over by an evil exec who wants the tunes out so that he can make way for his cooler, hipper CGI cartoons. He does so by finding a clause in the Warner Brothers contract that everyone who works for the studio has to at least have a high school degree. Bugs and company don't and have to go back to an all-human live-action high school. It is basically Billy Madison with the Looney Tunes or a John Hughes movie starring Bugs Bunny. Right off the bat, I think that plot is pretty genius and could have worked so well. The Looney Tunes having to go back to high school to get their high school degree so that they can continue working for Warner Brothers. Looney Tunes movies always do this meta thing where they mention they are employees of Warner Brothers. And so obviously them going back to high school, they would have joined the basketball team and had to have played a game of basketball. But it's these other details that make this movie sound so much more fun. Like, for instance, who the lead human character would have been. He describes him as the human lead was a guidance counselor, and we play with the fact that that is not at all exciting. In fact, the first scene of the movie is exactly the first scene in Space Jam, but with a young guidance counselor as a kid who dreams of nothing but being a guidance counselor. He even has trading cards of the world's best guidance counselors. That right there is so funny. You guys all remember the way the original Space Jam started with a young Michael Jordan talking to his father, playing basketball at night, having dreams of being a big player, mix in that awesome soundtrack, the swell up, and him about to go slam dunk, and then the music kicks in, and then it's just a flash of Michael Jordan's life. Imagine that now with a damn guidance counselor. Wow, that would have been the best opening for a Space Jam movie. I don't even know what that would have looked like. Is he like at his desk with a paper, and instead of slam dunking a basketball, he turns around and goes, "I'm a guidance counselor. All the people in hell, let's go, it's time to slam." And that idea, instead of having sports trading cards of basketball players, it's famous guidance counselors. Like, I don't even know any famous guidance counselors. Maybe just Robin Williams from Good Will Hunting. I hope he was one of the cards. But funny enough, as brilliant as I thought that was, he says here, "I remember Warner Brothers not at all liking that opening," which I disagree with, but that's okay. I have no idea how they could have hated that. I think that sounds so funny, but Warner Brothers ain't always making the best decisions. Still from there, I asked him a couple more questions about the movie because I saw at one point on his Twitter, he posted actual screenshots of the script and it had Tiger Woods in the film. I'll link that tweet down below so you guys can follow him or actually read pages of the script that he posts. As far as another celebrity that he had in mind to be part of this film, this would have been the best joke in the movie. He says, "I remember it's revealed that Keanu Reeves also never graduated high school, so he was gonna go back with the tunes so that he can star in the Matrix sequel. He wasn't a lead, just a recurring joke, and every time we see Keanu in school, he's getting geekier and geekier." I need to remind you guys, he wrote this movie years back. So it was when Keanu Reeves wasn't really considered the legend he is today, with the resurgence he's had with like the John Wick movies and even starring in a new Matrix film. That would have been a great running joke that you would just see Keanu Reeves also going back to high school with the Looney Tunes, but he'd pop in every now and then getting geekier and geekier. As far as what the villain team would have looked like in Varsity Bugs, I did go ahead and ask him, and he said, in Varsity Bugs, there were CGI tunes that wanted to replace the Looney Tunes. They were kind of Monster-y, but in the end, they are on the Looney Tunes side. I think the Monstars are actually in the movie at one point. Bugs recruits them for something, but they've moved on from being goons and now run an accounting firm or something. More genius that I'm like, why did this not get made? We have a Monstars cameo and they're accountants now. So random and wacky, I love it. But I also like what he mentions here is that the bad guy team would have been CGI animated, and that would have been a cool comparison that you have the 2D animated Looney Tunes who are out of style, and then you have these new cooler tunes who are CGI with upgraded tech. That would have been a great villain team, and I think would have made for some cool visuals on the basketball court. But as far as why the movie didn't get made, I did ask him, and he said, I really don't know. Truth be told, you're rarely told why something doesn't get made. It has to be approved by a ton of different people in a ton of different departments and a ton of different levels, more than half of which I will never meet. For all I know, the Looney Tunes just wasn't a priority at that time. Back in Action was still 4 or 5 years away from getting made. And that really is the case that sucks with a lot of these movies, is we never get a clear idea of why they decided not to, but it usually does come down to money, and Warner Bros. Trying to figure out if they could have a big profitability margin with it. But someone like Brian Lynch, who I know is a big Looney Tunes fan, I think would have been the perfect person to be involved with him, because even when I asked him why did he love this story, his response was, I think I treated the Looney Tunes with the respect they deserve. They are among the, if not the greatest animated characters of all time. Daffy might be my favorite character in anything, period. It was a joy to write dialogue for them, and I think I captured their personality and heart really well. But those are the 7 unmade canceled Space Jam movies that we almost got to see, that I think would have been so fun to see on the big screen. I really again want to thank Brian Lynch for taking the time out of his day to give me all this information so I can create this content for you guys. If you could do me a favor and go give him a follow, don't bug him or harass him on Twitter. But if you want to compliment him about Varsity Bugs or tell him what a great idea he has, I'm sure he'd love to hear it. But now all that's left to do is to look forward for Space Jam: A New Legacy and hoping that it does start up the Looney Tunes again, because I would love to see these guys in more movies. Be sure to leave me your thoughts down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Film Review or on TikTok on 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.